morning. I think we'll go ahead and start. There are some more people expected, but parking and traffic and then parking again. So welcome. A little bit about us. I am Angela Beard. I'm the director of the Sanford Institute of Philanthropy at CityU. And Sanford is we're a institute that was funded, if you will, by our national affiliate, a very generous and enlightened, I think you would all agree, gentleman decided that the nonprofit sector needed some support and funded philanthropy institutes all around the country. There are several affiliates to offer fundraising training to the sector for free or very low cost. And so we've been around for a couple of years now here at CityU Seattle. And that's what I do. It's the best, well, one of the best jobs in the world, having been on the other side of the table for quite some time, to be able to offer good morning at very low cost or free, right? Those are our favorite words. Support to the community that I spent so much time in. Our mission, just to show, is too dark to see part of. I tried to get the lights a little, but it was all or nothing. So whether sitting in the dark or with the brightness. So I hope you can see, but it is to help nonprofits significantly increase their fundraising capabilities and ensure that they have their, community impact they have in their communities and society through proven contemporary curriculum presented by world class. You can read the rest for yourself, but you kind of get a sense of what it is we do. I don't know if we're very well known. I'm brand new. I've been here for just 2 months, and so I'm trying to get the word out to all of our colleagues. Hey, come take advantage of our services because I get paid to provide them for you. So, hooray! There are people that care out there. And here is me, a little bit more about me. I was in fundraising for more than 20 years, which I really kind of cringe to announce publicly. I started as a grant writer at Pacific Northwest Ballet, then I went on to several arts organizations, went to grad school in there somewhere, and also at Cancer Lifeline and social service organizations, food banks, mental health centers, etc. Until I started teaching at Seattle University and then went there full time for a while. And here I am at CityU trying to provide, like I keep saying, education to all of you hardworking and deserving people. That's a capital campaign, enough about me. Why don't we talk about you with another dark slide. If you could just, we'll go around, if you could, good morning, everyone. I know it's hard to get here, so welcome. If you could introduce yourself and share, and most of the slides are white, where you work, what your role and responsibilities are, and what you hope to take away from this workshop. So I'm going to pick on you.
My name is Anne. I work for a consulting firm called Standards and Krebs, and my job is data and research specialist. So anything that falls under data and research, I do, which includes prospect research. But I'm very new to that work, so here to kind of get into the nitty-gritty.
Great. Anne. Hi.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Stevenson. I'm the development manager at Elizabeth Gregory Home. It's a small nonprofit serving homeless women in the University District, and we have a transitional home from Maple Leaf. And I'm a single person development office, so I do the fundraising, communications, default IT, and intercede when there's any conflicts in the shelter.
My goodness,
Yeah.
you have a full plate.
And I hope to find some more tips about free prospecting.
Okay, well, I think we can help you out there. Right. Well, we come over here to my colleague here at CityU.
I teach here at CityU and University of Washington. I teach social entrepreneurship and conservation of biodiversity, dying sciences that should be living instead. But I'm really here for this workshop because I work with the international development team of the African Wildlife Foundation and increasingly write a lot of grants and getting a lot of money from this local area, and they're like, well, you're our international development officer, and you know, I'm an academic, so I want to learn how to do it a little bit less academic.
Great. Hello.
Hi, I'm Janice Taguchi. I'm Executive Director of Community for Youth, and I just hope to learn more. Here to learn, so.
Welcome. Great.
I'm Judy Yu with Yale University. I work in the athletics department, and I'm with the living that we do a great job with our alums, and we want to really go with our prospects.
Okay.
And I'm Tasha Irvine, and I'm here in two capacities. In a professional capacity, I write business plans and business plan writing, and I often have, for nonprofits, and I often have this as a question for my clients, so I'm eager to learn more about how to support them. And then also in my personal life, I do a lot of work with my kids' PTAs, and this is an ongoing issue, and I'm just curious how this might apply to that.
My name is Florian, and I do not work for a non-profit currently, but I'm involved in an intentional community, working on a big project that would involve one, maybe two projects. And so I've been coming here for several months to learn as much as I can about the non-profit work.
Great. Welcome. Hi.
Hi, good morning. I'm Katie Gardner-Bain. I'm the Major Gifts Officer at the King County Sexual Assault Research Center. And our team as an organization right now, we're evaluating a lot of the untapped potential in our database, and I'm interested in comparing resources across that research.
All right. Oh, snake around back here. Hi.
I'm Alyssa Schneider, and I'm the Director of Individual Giving at City of Seattle. So I work with individual donors and
Great.
Hi, I'm Nicole Marshall from City of Seattle, King County. I do development operations, a lot of event planning, reporting, some are needs to learn more about prospect research.
Great.
I'm Olga Zaborowska. I worked as a business librarian and prospect researcher for past last 12 years, and I'm retired.
I'm excuse me, Larry Simons. I'm corporate and foundations manager for FSC-IMP. FSC-IMP is a fundraising arm headquartered here in Seattle for an international, a global environmental nonprofit for a stewardship council. And brought on board to build a team and work with foundations and corporations.
Okay, welcome everyone. Let's get started. So, some of the logistics. First of all, if you need to use the restroom, it's around the corner past the elevators, big orange wall, and there's a code. We will take a break about noon. So those of you who brought your lunch or want to go to Starbucks or whatever, you can. The presentation is broken in half. Major donors at the first half, grants the second half. So if you only want half, that's kind of the deal. But of course, it's all fascinating. So do stay if you can until 1. Here's what I want you to walk away with. I want you to be able to understand the importance of prospect research. And more importantly, I think we all in this room understand it, right? But maybe some others in your organization need to be convinced that that is an efficient and an effective way to spend your time. So some tools for you there. Know where to locate the characteristics of a prospective donor. We'll give you one institutional. Have a suggested strategy for identifying and qualifying major donor prospects. And then we'll chat a little bit about ethics. I teach this course, or have taught a fundraising course at CLU, and every time it's in the arts department, so I get a lot of would-be arts managers, et cetera. And when we talk about prospect research, some people start squirming, and they're like, oh, we're stalkers, and I'm not comfortable with this, and is it really right to be seeking out all this information? Well, let's hear what you think at the end of the hour, what our profession says about that. So, why do we do prospect research? What are your thoughts, other than the bullets that I have conveniently provided you on the screen? Do we want to snoop about people? Do we? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, when I say snoop, I mean don't dive into their personal lives and get all the dirt. No, right? What are we trying to establish? Relationship. Is this person a viable candidate for a relationship with our nonprofit? Are we the right nonprofit for them to support? Right? Because that's what it's all about in the end. So we use prospect research to identify prospective donors, brand new donors, bring them in, see if they're interested in working with us and engaging. We can also use it to go into our current database and find major donors in those that are already partnering with us, right? Additionally, use our fundraising resources. Are you going to be better off spending the 80% of your time that is focused on the 20% of your donors that give the highest amount of gifts, scrambling around trying to meet with them all and not knowing who's really interested in engaging, or knowing who's interested in engaging and being able to really focus on stewarding those donors, keeping them informed of what's going on? What do y'all think? Right? Of course you know what the right answer is. And then reduce fundraising costs kind of goes hand in hand with that. Instead of throwing things against the wall and paying for them to see what sticks, let's do good morning. Let's be analytical about it. Let's see what information we can find to, again, make the best use of our time, save money that we would spend chasing uninterested people around, etc. All right? Anything in there that you want to have discussed that I have not listed so far? How many of y'all do prospect research now, or have someone on your staff that does? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, a reasonable amount. So you'll learn that I'm a pretty informal teacher and I prefer interaction. And I learned something yesterday about personal information, that you can only have so much before you have to be regulated or anyone. I Wikipedia'd it and I didn't quite understand, but I'm going to look further. Because it's like, okay, how big can our database be before we have to secure it in a different way by law? I don't know. I'll let you guys know. So I always learn from you too, so please jump in with your own tips and ideas, and we'll all learn together. All right, so again, just a little bit more about what we want to learn from prospect research. For new donors, both individual and institutional, what are we looking for? There are 3 characteristics that really have to be in place for someone to want to partner with you. And what are they? They're right up there. Is a lot of money enough? No. Who says no? Who says yes? Anyone? Okay. I have an arts background, as you know, and I've been in fundraising forever, which I just told you. And every cocktail party I go to, someone inevitably asks me, some well-meaning person, why don't you just go to Bill Gates for your money? Why don't I?
No interest.
He has no interest in, he has interest in the arts, but his foundation supports, what do they support? Healthcare, education, right? And bless him, it's his money. He can do with it what he wants. But it would be a waste of my time to spend, and their application process is not a walk in the park. You go through all of that and be turned down inevitably because they do not fund the arts, right? So capacity is not enough. It's important, but it's not enough. What else do we need? Interest. We need some indication that our prospect is interested in our mission and interested in philanthropy in general, right? Not everybody is generous in the nonprofit sector. They have other priorities. And then linkage. We want to know what linkages are in place between a potential donor and our organization, or what could be pursued or maximized, all right? This also you'll find in fundraising literature if you read it, as ability, affinity, and access, kind of all the same thing. It's the big 3 that make a prospect qualifiable, shall we say. Now, there are also individual donors to your database, and we need to look at the same thing for them, right? And what is the objective of that? They're giving you money, they're sending a check already. What do you think? Why do you think this information would be helpful?
Perhaps they can do more.
they can do more, right? And by more, I'm gonna push you a little on that. What else? What else? We're talking higher gifts.
Higher gifts,
Right.
maybe they have more interests.
Right.
You can find out what their interests are and kind of steer them to that
Mhm.
organization.
Right. So particular programs or, initiatives, but also what else might we want from our constituents? We might want them to volunteer. We might need them to open doors for us. We might eventually want them on a board or on a committee, right? So let's get to know them a little bit better. And the point of that is trying to find those donors who want to connect in some way, who want to deepen the relationship between themselves and your organization. It's kind of a different mindset for me when I was preparing this. I was like, no, we want to see who has money so they'll give us more, right? The more I read it, the more sense it makes to me. We want people to connect. Doesn't mean that the folks who are writing us checks that do not wish to connect are going to go away, or they're not worth getting to know, or whatever. They're just not interested maybe in doing more than writing a check for your good work every year. You guys all have those donors, right? We love them, we thank them, but that's as far as it's going to go, and that's okay. Let's find the folks who want to further engage with us. Who's seen the fundraising cycle? Yay, so many hands. That's what I want to see. So where does prospect research fall on the fundraising cycle? Identification. Yes, and to some extent cultivation as you get to know the person if they respond to your outreach to connect, right? So let's start. What are we looking for individual prospects? We're starting with individuals, so we're talking folks that we think could be or are currently donors that we want to make major donors. What's our first? What do we look first? Let's go back to our 3 criteria. What does this one cover? Ability or capacity, whatever you choose to call it, right? So we're talking about wealth indicators. Oh, and one other thing I should interrupt to let you know is that I will be sending out these slides after our presentation. I've got another one Thursday, so hopefully I'll get to it before then. But if not, you will have them by the end of the week. There are about 1 billion links that I've researched for you that I want y'all to have without having to scramble and scribble and all. So they're coming your way. So what are some indicators of people's capacity? Their income, right? That's hard to get publicly, unless they work as a CEO of a publicly traded organization. But you can get indicators by looking at real estate ownership. And that is found, I'll change this link up, I apologize, it's forever yesterday, but there's a King County Assessor's Office that will tell you who owns. If you have an address, you can look up the parcel and find out what it's valued at, who owns it, sales, all kinds of wonderful history. I looked at my own, it was a little bit interesting. Pension amounts, again, public companies are required to report this. And there is the link. Where does someone live? When you put in the Medina zip code, for example, right? All the demographics of the neighborhood are there, and that includes average age, racial composition, income, all that stuff. It's very nice. It's a beautiful box the census provides us. Good information to have. And then insider trading transactions. So this one, who knows what information we're gathering from this? What does it tell us? Anyone ever used this database or thought about using it? So insider trading is, I am on the board at Microsoft, and I decide that I want to sell $50 million worth of shares. Now I'm an insider, so that has to be reported to the SEC. It is when I make my sale, and then you as a fundraiser who are tracking me closely because I already get your organization and you're awesome at prospect research, find out that Angela Beard just had $50 million come into her bank account. Maybe this is a good time to consider strategizing and ask for It's information. It's good information, right? Everybody with me so far? Okay, good. What else are we going to look for besides indicators of wealth? We've got capacity down. What's number 2? Interest in mission and philanthropy in general. Are these people who give at all? Right? So, NOSA.com is a fabulous resource. I've known about it in my grant writing capacity. Anyone use it or tried it out? Okay. Have you? Tell us what that's like. Is it helpful to you?
It's helpful because it deals with individuals and it deals also with companies and foundations.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is the only resource that's fine, but having additional resources is also helpful because there are inevitable gaps in coverage.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
It's one of several resources that's a good resource.
It is a good resource. It's owned by Blackrod. Everybody probably knows Blackrod, right? And I think they must have squirrels in a warehouse somewhere just poring over annual reports and programs and all because they list by individual the number, the amounts, and dates of gift to nonprofits, plus the names and types of organizations supported. Now, it's a paid subscription-based service, but do we all live in King County? Or
No.
you do?
No,
or do
Kids
not?
Out County.
Kids Out. Okay, I don't think you can get it over there without a subscription. I discovered that you can, the Redmond Library, which has a fabulous Center for Philanthropy, has it available for free. Yay! And I would say it's well worth a trip to Redmond with your King County Library card in hand. And you can access it online for free. Because I tried and all I need to do was put in my library card number. Now I don't have one yet. But you can do this, and I believe in the privacy of your home. And it will list, again, if you have a prospect, you can just zap their name in, and it will tell you to whom they give and how much and how recently.
And the Redmond Library this fall is doing a film discussion series every Tuesday night. And it's on topics that a lot of people mentioned here, from homelessness to sexual abuse and various things. And the center is there then, and they have people that you can talk to if you're a member of an organization. So it's a film series until the end of November.
Oh, great. That's good to know. Maybe I'll get that link from you
Yeah,
and
it's
include
great.
it when I follow up after this. Questions on NOSA so far? Okay, I obviously do not have a subscription, or I would have screenshot a sample for you. But there's a fabulous introductory video on their website that if you want to see, check it out and see if it's worth your while. It's a 5-minute video. Have a look at that. Political donations. Again, why do we care?
See what their interests are.
Yeah.
People who give to political causes, they're more likely to pay for them.
Yep. So we know that they give or are likely to give and what they're interested in supporting a little bit clearer. You can look and see their political donations, right? Another bonus to the SEC4 website is on the last page. It shows their employer. So if you don't know where someone works, have a gander at looking them up in that database and you might get employment information. Anything we can do to continue building what we know about an individual is good, right? Everybody with me so far? So we've knocked off capacity. We've knocked off interest. What's next?
Linkage.
Linkage, yay! All right, so by this we call background information, and this is again, there is no database of who's linked to who, so this is where you have to do a little bit of jumping from one organization to the next. So knowing about someone's nonprofit affiliations, their professional affiliations, looking at their biography, where they may have gone to school, or even where their kids go to school, if they're on any boards that are public, that your board members might be on, all tells you about who knows who, right? Anybody had any success with that? Creating those linkages with board members? This is kind of the last piece, because of course, in attempting to cultivate and get to know a donor better, you're going to establish your own relationship, right? So there will be a linkage there. But if there's someone who can help me out here, open the door, go on the call with you, make a call to introduce you, are we better or worse off? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up, right? We want that personal introduction, connection, if at all possible. And how many of y'all go to the luncheons, the breakfasts, and the performances and take home the program? Me too. You know, and maybe it's old school, but it works. You can use that information to figure out, again, who's on their board, who they know on your board, who gives to them, who does not give to you. I had a fabulous, I give to TFE in the U District. What was the U District? There you go. And I went to a luncheon once by another youth, homeless youth organization in town, and was looking at their program, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. I know this foundation. I know they don't give to TFE. Took it back to staff, and they wrote a grant, and voila, right? I'm not bragging on myself. I'm telling you, those programs and lists and annual reports and things are gold. So use them. Questions so far? Anything that we haven't covered, any data source that you think would be helpful or would like more information on?
Could you explain IRS 527? Is that just nonprofit directors, or is that?
No, IRS 527 is a form that corporations fill out that lists their directors and I think believe their compensation. But in this case, I'm thinking, okay, so you have a board member who works, or not that works, you have a board member, you guys want to reach out to Starbucks for the sake of discussion. And you don't have contact there, but you go to Starbucks 527 and you see, oh, what do you know? I know that this person on the Starbucks board is the neighbor of my board member. See what I'm saying? You can see their address, you can, voila, there's your in.
And that's only for profit, and then the nonprofits you get from the Form 990.
Nonprofits you can get from the 990, yes, which we'll get into more with the grant research. But yeah, this is only for for-profit, publicly traded corporations. Private corporations do not have to submit the same information. So then you have to do a little bit more detective work, shall we say. All right, so far so good? Yesterday, a wonderful lady spoke up very timidly and said, I've never done any prospect research. And so all these things you say that everybody knows, it's not true. And so I was immediately backed up. So don't be shy to, if I'm going too fast or haven't explained something well enough, please speak up. Okay, so what are we gonna do with all this stuff? We've got a huge amount of information compiled or in scraps or napkins or whatever. Now what do? We're gonna try to organize it somehow, right? Because how many donors do y'all have in your databases? 100? How many of you have databases? Be honest, if it's Excel, that's cool too. Yesterday's example again, the gentleman who was most experienced in prospect research had 1,500 donors in his database. And so when he started to think about going through all of them and providing all this information, he was a little bit like, well, you can be systematic about it, and very quickly, some folks will start to weed themselves out and leaving you with a smaller pool to focus on, right? So what we're gonna do is first create our prospect pool. And we're going to take all the information that we've just talked about, their capacity, their background, and their linkage, and incorporate any current relationship information with you. And this is where it gets to be a little bit of an art, okay? And you are going to rate them. So you develop a system of 1 to 5, A to D, whatever makes sense for you guys, red, green, yellow, who knows, and say, okay, somebody with capacity of $1 billion is a capacity rating of 1. Someone like Angela Beard is a capacity rating of 5, right? Then the same thing for their interests. Someone who, if you are a homeless shelter and you have a prospect that gives to youth care or Team Feed or Elizabeth, your organization, what's their affinity or their interest rating going to be? It's going to be higher than somebody who maybe went to a youth care luncheon but doesn't give regularly, right? Same thing for linkages. When you have a prospect who is your board member's mother, they're going to have a higher linkage rating than someone who your board member just met at a cocktail party last week and got their business card, but that was kind of all to the exchange, right? Everybody with me? So you go through systematically and rate your list of prospects on those characteristics. And I have a worksheet that, again, will be part of the information I've sent you. Okay, so this grid, here's the blank one. So as you can see, everybody see? Okay. Here, this won't all be complete when you start. You'll get up to about assigning them here to lead staff and volunteer. We have the prospect's name, their affinity or their interest rating, their capacity rating is here, the stage that they're at. This is moves management, in case that's a foreign concept to anybody. This is what's called moves management, where a prospect is in your donor pipeline. Okay? So stage is something you'll also have to develop ratings for. 5 might be just meeting, 1 might be we're about to make an ask. Okay? The gifts capacity rating, the gift sought, what you think you can ask for, and this will vary, of course, at the stage you're in, and then who they're assigned to, their particular interest, and the actions that are happening, email, call, visit, etc. Okay, there's a blank one. It has instructions here, just in case I'm going to, whatever, too fast. And here's a fake example. Okay, you all see it? So we've got Mr. Davis, pretty interested because this has a scale of 1 to 3. He's pretty close to an ask. He has capacity for a $100,000 gift. They're asking for 75. He's assigned to these people. He likes the organization enough to support them just generally, and this is what we're doing with Mr. Davis to continue shepherding him in the process. Okay. Make sense to everybody? Okay. Again, I will be sending you this full spreadsheet, so you can use it, and you'll probably need to tailor it for your own needs, right? No 2 fundraising shops are the same, and everybody has different criteria, different needs, different steps, etc. So just use it as a template and go from there. So now that we've organized our information, we sort into priority order based on recency of their last gift. It's the culmination of all these factors. The amount of their last gift, what we've established our capacity to be, and what we've established their relationship to be. What's our objective in this again? Before we get lost in all these weeds and details. Establishing relationships. Who of all these people wants to become more engaged with our nonprofit, resulting, we hope, in bigger gifts or more frequent gifts? And who is going to be sending us a check once a year ad infinitum? We love them both. Let's figure out who wants to get closer to us. Now we go through our list, and systematically, 10 donors at a time, we start to introduce ourselves. I see smiling back there, Lisa.
Why am I smiling?
Why are you smiling?
Oh.
Is this outside the boundaries of possibility, or?
No, I was just thinking about my introductory emails and how very rarely responded to them.
Right. And what does that tell you?
That I need to follow up.
Yeah. What does that tell you? Okay, so we're gonna do an introductory letter. I'm just gonna share my own experience, take what's helpful and forget the rest. I introduce myself. Usually this is a process I go through when I'm new to an organization, but starting, if you haven't been doing this with your donors, it will be new to them. So I'm Angela Beard. I am the Executive Director, Development Director, whatever, at Nonprofit X. I know that you've been giving to Nonprofit X for years. We are so grateful. I just would like the chance to introduce myself personally and find out a little bit more about you. This is not a fundraising call. I'm always very explicit about that up front, so that that lowers that hesitation. May I call you to schedule a coffee? Or would you like to come for whatever the event or introduction thing happens to be? Send it out, wait, follow up with a call. In the meantime, of course, I'm researching this prospect online and finding out more about them, and all the things we just talked about are put into place, okay? So when we have the conversation, I'm ready. Follow-up call, usually you have to leave voicemail, right? Because people work. And then wait. If that doesn't work, then usually I'll send them a donor survey of some kind. How do you feel about your relationship with us? What would you like to see more or less of in terms of your benefits? Would you be interested in volunteering, touring the facility, whatever offer I have to make with them? If no response from that, then what have we learned? Either there's some major crisis going on in their lives, which sad to say does happen, or they don't want to connect further, and we move on. 10 at a time, why? It's going to be a lot of tracking of emails and calls, and you want to stay on top of it, right? You don't want to send an email and then 2 months later be going, oh, whoops, I forgot to respond. I forgot to follow up. Make it manageable, 10 at a time. And they'll all be different stages and processes, and you'll know when it's time to add 10 more. Okay? Yeah?
Do you have a rule of thumb of the time lapse between the introductory letter and the follow-up call?
I wait a week. You have to know your folks. I wait a week because the people that I work with are, that's kind of their availability. If you were to be raising money, say, for Physicians Without Borders, when people were overseas and doing their thing, or there was some kind of contextual reason why that people aren't readily available, you have to kind of figure out the best way to communicate with them and the frequency. Does that help? Yeah.
What about rule of thumb in terms of number of contacts like that? So let's just say that's 4 to start out with, then it seems like.
Well, then I suggest that they're going to go back into what I think of as the conventional pool. So they're going to still get your annual report, and they're still going to get newsletters, and they're still going to get updated, just like all of your donors. But after 4 contacts, if you're getting crickets, it's pretty safe to assume that they are satisfied with the relationship as it is.
I mean, if you're getting contacts, then you just take it from there in terms of what seems right.
Yes, because you have made an offer in one of these outreaches. You know what I'm trying to say. You have said, I would like to meet you. We would like you to come visit us. Can I come visit you? Would you be part of a focus group? Whatever you're trying to engage them more deeply will be offered, and they'll either say yes or no, and you go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everybody with me so far? Okay, awesome. Little trivia for you. It's a ratio of 3 to 1 when it comes to prospects and gifts. So you will need 3 prospects for every gift that you hope to achieve. Katie, right? Yeah. Anne, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Your last name is the same as my friend Katie Baines.
Oh.
No. The greatest predictor of Future giving is past giving, and charitable giving and political giving are strongly correlated. Just know that, in case you're wondering why the heck am I doing this? Well, that's why. And the 80-20 rule again. This is going to help you spend your time on the most profitable, no pun intended, prospects in your donor base or in the world at large, right? It's going to keep you from wasting your precious time, of which none of us have a lot, chasing after folks that are never going to engage with you further. All right? Okay, we are running fast today. Here is a whole list of the resources, most of them scattered throughout the presentation. This overview on cultivating individual donors I found to be excellent. It's what we're talking about today, expanded. So if you don't get enough, go out and have a read. Individual prospect template suggests a way to organize the information that you're looking for. So you'll have that available. This Excel spreadsheet, here's the link. A wonderful white paper on working in NOSA and some tips and tricks to get the most out of that, especially if you're driving to the east side to access the database, right? And then jumping ahead a little just to keep it all in the same place, the worksheet for corporate foundation prospect research is also linked here. Okay? All right, questions? Yeah.
I think it's called iWave. It's like a well screening, which I'm sure is subscription based, but would that also can assign a rating for
Yeah.
do you that one way or the other, if it's worth the investment or?
I do believe it's worth the investment if you can afford it and if you're prepared to support it. We had, oh my goodness, at a nonprofit I worked at, there were 70 years worth of records in a moldy warehouse in paper form. And I was just like, I couldn't take it. Every fiber of my being was revolting at this. So my fortunately enlightened boss had me hire someone who had to put all of that into Excel, first of all. And then we shipped it off to a wealth management, or not a wealth management, a donor database management company that cleaned it and did the ratings. And the goal was for us to start an alumni program. This was an education institution, and all these folks were alumni, and we had no information on them in our database. And it paid off, I think. It was about $15,000 for several thousand records. I think 30,000, 32,000, around there. We were able to stop embarrassingly mailing to people who were deceased. We were able to really focus on the prospects that had gone far in the field. So we could, invite them to join us for events, or invite them to give, or focus them in our newsletter on them. Oh, look what our graduate has done. Now they're at this institution or this university or whatever. And it cleaned up our database too. It returned all correct information or no information found. So in the end, it saved us a lot of money and helped us to advance, no pun intended, the fundraising operation really significantly. But it was expensive, and it took months. It took from April or May through the fall. It was about a 6-month process. Does that answer your question? Anybody else have experience with? Yes.
iWave is a very good source of information, and it's like, if you're looking for one source, I would say iWave probably is yours. It's not cheap, but it's not expensive either. And one of the benefits of iWave is that they have relationship science there, which by itself is standalone very expensive too. And that helps you show relationship between people. That might not be very useful for depending on who the donors are, but for us it was not very practically useful, but never for some high level donors that was really good. So I really think that's very good.
All right. Let's take a break. We come back at noon and start with part 2, the corporate foundation research section. There's a Starbucks across the way, for those who don't already know, and there's some machines in there with soda and little snacks and all if you need them. Talk to someone you don't know, network, give your card out. We all help each other, right? See you back here at noon. Okay. Everybody have a good break. Get what they needed. Oh, you're all chatting. We like that. Yes, you should chat amongst yourselves and trade cards and resources and get each other's info so that, because we all help each other, right? That's why we're in this business. So let's move on and talk about grant, what I call grant research, of course, corporations, private foundations, and government sources. First bit of information is that the talk refers to foundations, but the information I'm going to provide to you also is suitable for corporation and government work, especially the Foundation Directory online, which we're going to look at in a little bit of depth because that's the primo source for prospect research when it comes to grants, okay? So, before you start your grant research, you really have to think about and organize information and keywords for your search. Now, what does that mean? That means that you're kind of putting on a new lens when you move from working in your organization for 8 hours a day and knowing what they do back and forwards to having to sit down in front of a database and put in a single word that describes what you are looking to fund. All right? So try a bunch of different hats on. Let's take an example, or we will take an example later, but the criteria that you need to provide when you do these searches are who, what, where, and how you are seeking funding, but who your programs or organization serves, where, how, and what you do. Okay? So far, so good? The best sources of prospect information, like I said, are listed here. Foundation Center, who knows about them? A couple folks? 2 or 3? Okay. If you do not know about the Foundation Center, I would highly encourage you to spend some time surfing, even if it's at night while you're watching your shows or whatever, because they are located in New York City, but have affiliates all over the country, again. And they are the leading researcher, information resource provider on foundation corporate giving in the country. They're awesome. They're a nonprofit themselves, and they provide not only this database, but training resources and worksheets and education opportunities, and they're really great. So the Foundation Center is who publishes this, and we'll get to the directory in just a minute. You can subscribe to it. It's expensive, but they are a little bit enlightened, so the Foundation Center has chosen to make their directory free all over the country as well through public libraries. Seattle Public Library has a terminal dedicated to it. You can go down there for free, sit down with your keywords and your search criteria when you're all ready with them, and search for free. There are also branches all around the region, including Bremerton. Where's our Kitsap friend? Tacoma, Marysville, Paulsbo, Redmond. There may be more since I did this slide because they seem to be popping up everywhere. And you can go there for free, whereas the subscription is, like I say up there, $70 a month if you want to have it in your office. There's a Foundation Center website, big surprise. They're also a source of information on 990s. Now, why do we care about that? Remember, there's a lot of ways to slice and dice prospect research for grants.
You want to see what the foundation, other things they've funded. Also, you could see what who the board members are.
Correct. Yes. Foundations are required to list their grants on their 990. They, by law, have to give away money. So you can go out to either the Foundation Center directory or GuideStar. Does everybody know about GuideStar? Okay, great. And look for Foundations 990, and it will list all the grants they made and the amounts in that tax year. And that's super helpful, as Karen said, because gives us a sense of what? Let's go all the way back to our 3 criteria. Interest and, of course, capacity. If they're making $1,000 grants, you're going to structure your approach in a different way than if you see consistent, $50,000, $100,000 grants, right? Right. So you know about GuideStar, you know about the Foundation Center. There's NOSA. While you have to pay for information on individuals, their foundation information is free. So don't dismiss them. If you can't afford them, go check it out for your grant research and get even more information than you had before. Everybody with me so far? Okay, great. Okay, so a little bit more about criteria. There are 4 things that you want to have established. Who's the population served? What are you doing for them? How are you asking the foundation to partner with you? And where are the services to be performed? Okay? There is a taxonomy that the Foundation Center provides that you can download. Of course, the link is here, but I'm going to show it to you. There are 800 keywords in this system, and it might behoove you, rather than going down the rabbit hole of the internet, to think about some keywords ahead of time and check them out in the worksheet to make sure that they are, in fact, keywords. Okay? So let me show you that. It'll take just a minute. So here you go. There are several different levels, right? And let me just explain a little bit how it works. We'll do this because it's the top one. But under arts and culture is subject level 1. So let's say you work for King County Arts Council, or they're called For Culture, of course. And you want to find out what foundations out there fund public arts councils. If you put in arts and culture, you will get every grant made to an arts and culture organization in the United States and even abroad, right? Maybe that's helpful. If you put in art services, it'll winnow down a little bit. But if you know that arts councils is a keyword, you'll only get the arts council grants when you enter your search. Does that make sense? And in this Excel spreadsheet, and this is a little bit unwieldy, but what can I say? If you know how to use the find function, you can look for, let's see, let's look under ballet. I used to work for a ballet company. All right, so ballet is under dance. So it is a subject level 4. It's all the way down in 4, right? So the one, which we've lost because it's way at the top, was arts and culture, performing arts, dance, ballet. I've just saved myself a lot of time, right? So that's why I recommend you try this spreadsheet. The link is in your little presentation. Some people like the rabbit hole, and some people like me. When I was a young prospect researcher, I was convinced that I was going to find these golden nuggets everywhere, so I went through everything. Okay, if that's a learning opportunity for you, go nuts. But this taxonomy will help you quite a bit. All right? Back to our PowerPoint. So we've got our keywords, or we have our keywords in mind. Let's check it out. So homelessness is one of my big causes. I'm very violently against people living in the street, so I use a lot of homeless examples. If I were looking for funding for a Seattle-based homeless shelter that wanted to start a vocational counseling program, what are some of the keywords that I might use? Shout them out. Don't be shy. I will try to find a pen. There's one. Let's think about the criteria. What have we got? We've got who, where, what, and how. Okay? So, who is this grant going to serve? What are some keywords? Homeless. And I know this is not a lot of information, so I kind of invented as I teach this. Let's say it's a men's shelter. Men. And that is a keyword, believe it or not. Maybe jobless. And there's no judgment attached to any of these. This is teaching, right? Indigent is another keyword. Okay? Where is this going to happen?
Seattle.
Seattle is one. Seattle, Puget Sound actually is the key word, but King County would probably also be in there. Washington State, and yes, USA. What kind of support, no, excuse me, what are we doing? What's the program about? It's actually vocational counseling, but you're on the right track. So, it's actually vocational counseling. Jobs, training, counseling, employment. So you're kind of getting the point, right? How do we want to support our program? This is a new program, right? I said meal up there. I apologize. I changed in midstream. You were correct. Yeah. All right. So sticking with the jobs example, this is a startup in any case. It is a new program. We're all trying to, yeah. What are some of the ways this would be funded, the ways that foundations make or corporations make grants would be program funding, as opposed to what? Capital or operating or endowment or, right? It also could be considered seed or startup money because it's a new program, right? So the way that you want the foundation to support you is also something you can search on. I need in-kind. I need capital funding. I need operating funding. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. And those are all keywords and categories that you can slice and dice this information on in the directory. All right? So we've got our keywords. And we put them in. And we come up with a list of foundations that do that work according to the criteria you enter. So we're back to homelessness now for real. And I put homeless services, Washington State focus. And this is a small screenshot of what I got. Okay? Now, some things to note about this. I put in homeless services. I could have put in homeless shelters, and I did. I could have put in homelessness by itself, and all three lists were different. So you've got to know your keywords, folks. Really focus in on those, and when you try one or two, go into the grants and make sure that they are matching up with what you're looking for, okay? So I happen to have access to the Foundation Center directory, and here it is. Something to know is that you can both search grant makers and search grants. So I was searching grant makers in the example that we just did, right? I want to know who's funding homeless services. And I'm going to do the search for you in just a minute. Say I wanted to know who is receiving grants for homeless services. Then I would search grants. Okay? Again, you got to slice and dice and be really innovative in your thinking when you're doing this research, because there are a million ways to skin a cat. All right? So let's try the search, and then I can show you what you come up with. Okay, so we have field of interest is homeless services. Geographic focus, Washington State. Note this is not the location of the funder. This is where the services are provided. Let's see how we do. You can include government grant makers, which brings us back again to, you're going to get a lot of information beyond foundations in this search, okay? Hooray! All right, so there's something funky about the way I put the criteria in, because I've only got 4 instead of the zillions that I had before. So I'm going to go to my index, and this view index here takes you to this, which is all the keywords, all 800 of them, okay? Go to H, homeless services. I should say and is what I need to do. And get rid of the state. Somebody said that, yay. There we go. All right, see, again, you gotta be super specific. So let's have a look at one of these. Let's have a look at the Foster Foundation in Kirkland. All we do is we go to them. First of all, you can just hover and you'll get a little snapshot of what they do, who they are, where they are, that kind of thing. Can you all see this? Is it big enough? Okay. When I click on Foster, I'm going to get their entire profile, okay? There are tabs up here for different sections. I'm most interested right now in the profile. So this is where they are, what type of grant maker they are, what their assets are, their EIN, some of the demographics. And then there's connections to their 990s all the way back to 2001. Isn't that awesome? Additional contact information, background. Now, why do we care about this? Let's push this a little bit. Well, this is established by the Foster family, right? Michael Foster is still alive. Does someone on your board know him? You know, he's on the UW board. Does someone on your board on the UW board? Right? You guys see where I'm going with this. They only give in the Pacific Northwest. So limitations are important. That's where I go first. Because if you're in Idaho or whatever, and forget it, you're wasting your time. No religious, no individuals, what they will not fund, basically. These are their purposes. So this is where you're going to look to see if what your organization's mission or program is lines up with their funding priorities, okay? Fields of interest. These match the keywords that the Foundation Directory uses, okay? So here we go, homeless services. They popped up when I put that in the search field, right? da da da. Geographic focus, Washington. Thanks for telling me to get rid of the state. And all these are keywords. Application information. Here's your deadlines. How you submit. When their board meets. So kind of when the decision you can expect, right? How long it takes. Who their donors are. Who their board is. More connections. Whoop, 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 right? Financial data kind of gives you an idea of what they have and what they have to give away. How much do foundations have to give away? A private foundation, in order to be qualified as a nonprofit, has to give away 5% of its assets every year. So, Foster has to give away, let's see, 10% would be 4.8 million. Half of that, 5%, is $2.4 million a year. By law. Otherwise, they lose their nonprofit status. Okay? Location information, and that's kind of it for the profile tab. All right? So, this is the stuff, right? This is what you want to know to start building your,
There's a bridge number on there. What is that?
Let's see.
At a glance, bridge number? Under EIN.
Truth is, I do not know. I don't. Anybody want to Google on their phone and get extra credit points? I need to know that, Karen. Thank you. All right. So that's what you get when you come up with your big list, back to our PowerPoint, and that's how you use it. So far, so good? Yeah.
Just from experience, do you find that a lot of grant givers like to donate more towards a campaign, like you establish, we're trying to raise $1 million, and then you ask a percentage? Or?
My experience is that they're more interested in giving towards the cause. Foundations, just like us, have a mandate from their board to make a difference in their community in the way that the board sees as important. That's why they have funding priorities, right? So at the end of the day, their board is going to want to know, okay, our priority is education. How many kids did our grants educate? I'm totally oversimplifying, but hopefully you get the idea, right?
I'm sorry, I used campaigner because I'm Australian and a campaign. What I meant is going after a foundation for like, this is what we want to fund, or is it better to build like, we're going to restore habitat for elephants and we need this amount of money, but instead of asking for all that money, then it's sort of like a matching grant or you're contributing.
So this is grant writing, which, we could do a whole week on that, I'm sure. Rule of thumb in grant writing, first of all, you never ask a funder for the whole amount, ever. They want to see multiple sources of community support. My rule of thumb is that you shouldn't ask a single foundation for much more than 30% of your project total, because they won't give you 100%, and they are going to want to see all the other folks that you're approaching, the events that you're having, the money that you're raising, the fees that you're charging, whatever it is, so that they know that you have a sustainable operation, sustainable plan, so that if they take their funding away, the elephants aren't going to be killed, or whatever the sad outcome with that would be, right? Does that make sense? And I'm happy to talk with you more about that. I teach grant writing, so it's I love it, and I can blather away about it till the cows come home without any problem. All right, so that's what happens. You get your list and you start going through and weeding, okay? And some of them will be fast. That's why I go to limitations right away. And one thing to be sure to pay attention for in limitations is does not accept unsolicited proposals. If that's the case, then it's a foundation where they are seeking out organizations to fund, and either the program officer or a board member or whatever has to recommend that an organization apply. And if you do, you'll be totally wasting your time, not to mention kind of embarrassing yourself. So look for that right away. Look at those limitations. And then if you make it through step one, then go down to the priorities. Make sure that your mission or program fits in with what's important to them. Then go to how you apply. Okay? So far, so good?
So, say you don't accept unsolicited proposals, but you see that you know someone who could make an introduction. That was
There you go. Yeah, it's not going to be as hot of a prospect. It's a little bit more of a long shot, but it's not dead is the point. And that's why looking at those linkages is important. One of your board members knows one of their board members, get on the phone, okay? So far so good? Questions? Okay. What do we do next? We've waded through the list. We've got a little portfolio of viable grant prospects for us to apply to. First, we create a prospect worksheet. Okay? There are probably electronic resources for this. I do not have or use them or know of them. If you do, please share with the class. This is just a way of, why is this not coming up? It doesn't want to. This worksheet is just a way of organizing the information and making sure that when you're down at the library, that you get everything that you're going to need back in the office, right? So, there we go. Here we go. It's a PDF. Again, you can download, right? And this is 4 pages, and you'll not need all the information again. This is kind of a use it for what you need it for. But of course, you're going to want to know the basic information, financial data, what grants they're making, what you need, does that match up, project period, why the funder's a good match, their priorities and yours, geographic, type of support, type of recipients, who they employ and who's on their board, okay? How do we apply? Online, paper, mail. There are a few foundations that still insist on you printing and copying and stapling the proposal applications for each of their board members, driving them to the office, but it's getting less and less common. Where'd you find this information, okay? What relationship do we already have with the prospect? Have they given before? Where are they? Who do we know there? Okay? And then where you found all this information. So you can go back and, if you need to, right? Or passing this on to the person that takes your position when you win the lottery. And what kind of contact have we had with them? What are our plans for next steps? This is kind of the Excel spreadsheet that we showed earlier for grants, right? And that is it. Okay? Calendar deadlines. Who in here has grants calendar? Who in here is going to create a grants calendar after today? Not only for your applications, but what else might we want on there? Reports, both interim and final reports. Why? Please don't fall into the trap of thinking that because you got the money, you get to slack off. If you don't report on time, you're not going to be eligible for future funding. Most of them are pretty hardcore about that. So get those report deadlines on your calendar right away, okay? And then we reach out to a program officer to start talking about a partnership. And again, I say program officer, but it could be corporate giving officer, it could be someone in the government, etc. Again, why? Who thinks that fabulous writing and an awesome budget will guarantee you funding? No. You're going to help yourself if you have a relationship with the person that gives away that money or coordinates it or is the liaison with the board and you, the grant writing community. All right? Just like with our individual donors, we want to build strong relationships with those folks. Why? Are they going to tip the scales in our favor?
Yeah.
They may. But for any number of reasons, you want to have a strong relationship. They get paid to give away money. Remember that, okay? A lot of times we're worried about bothering or taking up their time. No, that's their job. It is their job to help you get funded and to give away the foundation's 5% so they can stay in business. Call them, ask questions, invite them to your stuff, okay? And sometimes they will, I'm not guaranteed, but you know, people give to people. And I've many times had a foundation officer tip me off, oh, we're going to have money left over at the end of the year, you know, like woohoo, right? We would consider a second application from you. Angela, one of your pages is missing. Can you resubmit by 5 o'clock? Rather than just in the trash, right? That actually didn't happen. I'm using it as an example. You know, Angela, there's a new foundation, or, you know, Foundation X is changing its priorities. I think you guys would be a great fit. I can get you in to see them. You want those people on your side, so don't be shy about it. Pick up the phone, call them. It's going to save you time. Sometimes they'll say, no, you know, we're out of funding this year, or your project doesn't quite fit, or your organization is too young. Come back to us. I know that's not a pleasant one to hear, but you do. Come back to us when you've had 3 years of operations. And then again, you've saved yourself writing the whole application and taking up your time and all that. Get to know the folks, all right? Any questions about that? Yeah.
Kind of side question, but I'm wondering about the size of gifts.
Mm-hmm.
For, like, let's say a big foundation that has a budget of a few $1 million. What's kind of like the minimum size that you would approach a foundation?
What's your budget for your project?
So, it could be anywhere from like 1 to 10 million.
Okay. So that's the first thing you have to know.
I was more curious about when you're starting, like you just said something about they might want someone who has been in operations for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if approaching them with like really small amounts can help start the relationship and start getting you like bring you more legitimacy towards other funders.
Before you've been in operation out for 3 years or after? I'm sorry, I'm not. Before. I would not think of, I would think of it as starting the relationship before any ask is made. Foundation X, you're a new startup, you pick up the phone and you say, hey, we are starting this nonprofit, our mission is X, Y, and Z. I see that your priorities are X, Y, and Z. Can I come talk to you about when we might be eligible for funding and what of our programs you would be most interested in supporting? And then they're going to say, yes, no, hey, apply now, you're going to get, and then you go in that direction, right? But I would shy away from making your first contact with them a request for money as a new nonprofit. You folks, you've all been in the business. What do y'all think? Anybody have a differing opinion? Don't be shy. You agree? Woohoo!
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I did not expect that. That's great. And but my question was, I mean, the answer was better than the question I was asking. My question was really about the amount. Like, is there like an amount that would be too low, too ridiculously low? Like, you know, if you ask for $100, that's like.
Well, yes, there is an amount that's ridiculously low, and it's going to be based on whatever you. When you approach a foundation, you have to put together a project budget, right? So you're going to look at that, and there are a lot of factors in play. The foundation may only support certain parts of your project. Like they will fund salaries, but they will not fund supplies or travel. Well, then you've got your answer. Your request amount is your amount of salaries, okay? But if there isn't anything that specific, again, I would stay with the 30% range. I wouldn't go much below 10% though, because then they're going to be, this amount is so low, we can't make an impact.
Okay, so then between 10 and 30.
That's my guideline. Of course it varies. It's not completely ironclad, but that's my guideline. Yeah, Karen.
We can also look at the other research that you've done to see what their grant amounts typically are.
Correct.
Because I know there's a couple of grantors that, you know, that typically give this in between 5,000 and 10,000 or whatever it is, and so you want to do within their sort of.
Right. So, say for the sake of argument, you've got a $100,000 project. You're not going to go to a foundation that typically makes $500 grants, and there are plenty of them, because you may go to them at some point, but you need $100,000, right? And you want to be teaming with a foundation that can provide you with enough money that your project has an impact.
So, if you got a $500 grant for your $100,000 project, if that was your first grant, like a starting point, doesn't that help build some kind of credibility towards bigger
Class? I can see two sides of the argument.
I feel like I've had some word of mouth feedback that some foundations will grant for a couple of years, but then expect you to start living on your own with other income sources. So I don't think it's a given. It just depends, but that might be an interesting, I don't know if that's an appropriate question to ask. In general, does your foundation limit giving to a certain number of years?
No, that's an entirely appropriate question to ask. That's the thing about foundation fundraising as opposed to individual fundraising, right? Foundations are out there. They know what, to whom, how much, for how long, and they'll tell you because they don't want to waste either of your time. So that's an entirely appropriate thing to ask. You have a point about gaining credibility by garnering community support. Yes. The $500 thing is a little bit, because it might raise more questions than it answers. So you get your $500 grant and you broadcast it and your constituents say, it's cool that they got funding, but they've still got 90,900, you know what I'm saying? Where are they going to come up with that? So I might keep the $500 grant quiet for a while until you had a larger one. Share with the funder you're approaching for a larger grant, yes, we are on our way, we have started raising money. You can make a huge difference with your gift. And then when you've got a couple in the bank, woohoo, we've got 4 community partners and we've raised a total of $20,000 so far, and we want you to help us with the next 80, 50, whatever your target is. Is that helpful? All right, so I have a little aside here that you guys might think is tiresome, but there are some executive directors in the room, so I'm going to go ahead with it. When you are planning your grant writing strategy and your research, the how becomes important when you think about cash flow and resources available to your nonprofit in the finance sense. Why is that? In nonprofits, we are subject to what's called fund accounting. You probably all know about it, maybe not by that name, where we have 3 types of donations. What are they? Unrestricted. Everybody loves unrestricted, right? We can do with it what we wish. The donor trusts us. They don't have a particular tag in mind. Go nuts. Temporarily restricted. What's that? A temporarily restricted gift is restricted by one or both criteria: purpose, what you may spend the gift on, and time, when you may spend the gift. And that's usually in the case of multi-year pledges. Okay? 3 is permanently restricted. These you never get to spend. They're usually for an endowment, and that you get to take the earnings off of the fund and use it for your operations or whatever the donor wants you to, essentially, but you don't get to spend the principal. Everybody with me? You put it in the bank, essentially. So if you have an endowment fund, you add it to your fund. Endowments are invested, so the investment earnings you get to spend, but the gift you do not. It makes sense? All right, so when you're planning your grant strategy, and believe me, this is, I will share with you from hard experience on my part, you're going to budget for a goal, right? For example, a board approves a $120,000 grant goal for a fiscal year. And you're like, yay, we have 4 programs that are very attractive to donors. I'm sure I can get out there and write good grants that will raise that money. All right, so you do. You go nuts. You work your list. You do your prospecting. You write a bunch of grants, and you make your goal. You raise $120,000. Here's the problem. You raise $10,000 in unrestricted. You raise $50,000 for those 4 programs in temporarily restricted. And you raise $60,000, this is again a theatrical example, $60,000 in permanently restricted funds, because that's what the foundation wanted to give you, right? You've made your goal. How much money does your agency have to actually spend? Right? And of that, only the 10 can be spent when and for what you please. This is a partnership with your development director, your executive director, your finance people, but beware when you're plotting your research, and if you see that your program grants, remember that those can't be spent, as the organization may need the cash to pay its bills. Just something I want you all to be aware of. Again, through my hard experience. Yeah. So, any questions before we have a little chat about ethics so far? All right. Well, let's talk about ethics. And we are a tightly knit group, so I think we can avoid breaking into threes. But what are some things that come to mind when you think about what you have to consider to stay ethical when you're doing prospect research? Transparency. Shout them out. Confidentiality. Yes. Which is related to but distinct from privacy. Privacy, okay? Why do we care about this stuff? Right. Trust is sometimes all we have to sell, right? Is it ethical to be out there on all these sites that I've shown you looking for people's information? What do y'all think?
Public record, so yes. I think when you start to go onto social media sites, and that's when it gets to the gray area.
Okay. Anyone disagree?
It helps you not waste their time and your time. Not wasting their time, I think, is important. So if you know something that helps you be more efficient with them, and that's publicly available.
So I'm hearing publicly available. It's an important requirement of seeking out this information. And I agree. I think you're absolutely right. How many of you guys know that there is actually an association that governs prospect research in this country? There is. It's called the American Prospect Research Association. I'm going to take us to their statement of ethics. I think I am anyhow. Okay. I'm going to try to take them to our statement of ethics. Sorry about this. La, la, la. So these guys are great. I actually have gone to several of their conferences, and they really have a lot of of resources available to all of us that governing prospect research. So here's a statement of ethics. I won't read the whole thing, but basically they cover, for the kind of work we just talked about, they have a code that talks about using data with integrity, being accountable for your actions with regards to privacy and discretion. Practice, we want our work to be accurate, and conflicts of interest need to be disclosed at the first opportunity, right? That goes for seeking out and storing information, which is where the whole personal information discussion came from yesterday at my Everett workshop, right? Now, to your point, there's also a similar statement for social media. So they're seeing these as two different arenas and have ethical statements covering both. Okay? You've got the link, so again, I won't go through it all with you, but it's very helpful if you're having a sticky situation, right? tying ethics to why we're doing this all to begin with, what's our information trying to support? All this information we've talked about gathering, right? What's it trying to support? The feasibility of a relationship, excellent, Anne, by learning about these three things: capacity, interest, and linkage. So my rule of thumb is, if it doesn't have something to do with one of those three and supporting a relationship, it should not be part of your exploration. And I also use the example, or think of it myself, and I think, okay, if I were doing a contact report or data entry on the prospect research I've done, and the donor came up and looked over my shoulder and read what was in our database about them, would I be okay with that? Maybe that's a helpful comparison. I don't know. I tend to err on the side of caution than asking for forgiveness rather than permission, but to each their own, right? No. Well, I'm sorry. Let me expand on that. A donor can ask anything they like. They do not have a right to see what's in your donor database. If you refuse them, though, you're going to have some splaining to do. So technically they cannot come in and demand it. No, it's yours, you own it, it's proprietary. But yeah, I would want to be able to offer a donor, in any case, you want to see your record? Here you go, sure. You want to know when you gave? No problem. The event you came to? Great. How we've, learned about you was all public. Yeah. Anybody ever had that? I've had donors ask for their information, and I stalled. I will confess it, but in the end, I gave it to them. It's like you should be able to trust me. I want you to be able to trust me.
So, kind of putting a positive spin on it, I've heard that sharing a donor's information with them, if they ask, it's a celebration of their relationship with your organization, which I think is a really nice way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also heard the Seattle Times rule: if you wouldn't publish it in the paper, don't put it in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be helpful to maintaining a good relationship or building a good relationship with that donor. And sometimes this stuff will get a little bit on the gossipy side. I mean, one of my favorite examples is at an organization I worked at. There were two board members that had been married, and they had a nasty, ugly divorce. And we had to record minimal information about that in our database because they would both come to events, and we did not want to seat them at the same table. Right? But we didn't, so-and-so cheated and so-and-so left town. We just said, used to be married to blah, do not seat at their table at events. Make sense? Anybody have anything to add about that? This is one of the big questions my students ask me when I teach this course. So,
well, I have something to ask other people. Is that I work for an organization, and we were trying to get the wealth engine database so that we can do prospect research. And the board was really upset about it and really said, and it's all public information that they used to collect, but they said that's creepy. We were not doing that.
Everybody know what Wealth Engine is? Wealth Engine is an organization, I think they're in East Coast, that you can either purchase data from, say you want all the addresses in the Medina zip code, or you can send, that's where we sent our information when I had it cleaned. They'll clean it for you and return it to you with ratings and all that kind of thing.
So I guess the question is, does anyone else have a board of directors that don't understand the need for doing? I mean, they just consolidate all the research so you don't have to look at everybody's annual report. That's the same in the organization, and they have wealth ratings and so forth.
Right.
I guess another way to say it is, how would you present that to the board so they understood the reason for?
Well, that's why I start the show with I don't need to convince you guys of the value of prospect research. I'm trying to give you tools to convince your board or your boss or whatever that it's going to help you raise more money more efficiently, that it is all public and ethical. Show them the guidelines by which you're going to operate. If they still can't convince them, well, I don't know. That's when it gets a little political, because it's kind of like, all right, you aren't going to help me with this. Why don't you raise it then? You're responsible for the resources for this organization. I'm trying to do my best in completely ethical, well, yeah. But I've hijacked conversation. What else? What have you guys?
I worked for Nature Conservancy for many years, and before a project could be approved by the board to seek that funding, our job was to already put the ethics up front. So for example, if we were going to take money from Weyerhaeuser, our job was to put that into a spreadsheet about other projects Weyerhaeuser funded if we were doing rainforest restoration. And so the impetus was on the board to approve that funding we were seeking based on who we were searching for as our donors.
Mm-hmm.
We had to present that so that they had to bear the ethical consideration of, we'll take money from this group because even though they will reforest tropical rainforests, they're destroyers or they offset out there. So I guess in environmental science, the ethics had to be approved with the target revenue. So that was up front rather than at the end.
Anybody else? All right, keep your slides in case you're the one debating with your board one day. And I think that brings us to the end of our lesson, our presentation. Let's see, questions? All right, well, thank you for spending your afternoon with us. Just to reiterate, I will be sending out the slides. I will send you guys a link to an evaluation that I hope you will complete, because I can always use feedback on how to do better. And we have just created a Facebook page for SIP, Sanford Institute of Philanthropy. It's still in the works, but I would love for y'all to like it if you do like it, because I'm getting the word out to more folks like you that we're here and we're available to support you in your work, and I need everyone to know that. So thank you. Hope to see you again here, and anybody who wants to reach out to me anytime, feel free.
I just thought of a question that might be interesting to everybody.
Yeah, sure.
So there's foundations, but then also like corporate sponsorship and those types of resources. Are those generally listed in a separate resource from the foundation? Or
yeah.
Is that that's probably a whole separate?
Corporate sponsorship, and I might pick on Nicole for this, to back me up, is a different game than foundation grants. Yeah. Foundation grants are much more philanthropic, whereas corporate sponsorship is really tit for tat. Yeah. We want to get our name and our logo in front of the people that are going to be at your event, your performance, whatever it's going to be, right? And resources for that, I use this directory only to look up corporations to make sure, because sometimes it'll say limitations, does not support events, will not purchase tables, whatever. But they aren't listed as an interest. You know what I'm saying? I don't think. Nicole, any different experience than that?
Meaning like how we research them?
Yeah.
And then we'll.
I mean, a lot of our corporate sponsorships have been just through relationships.
Yeah.
So we haven't really just cold called or, right?
I mean, that's again where I steal a lot of programs. If I see that an organization is sponsored a nonprofit, I'll record that they did, and maybe you might like to sponsor our luncheon.
Yeah, but there's not like a directory.
There really isn't that I know of. Anyone? We've got.
NOSA might have partial information about sponsorship, and I think they might have listed as a sponsorship.
NOSA does?
Yeah,
okay.
NOSA does corporate giving to a certain.
Okay.
All of this is limited because no one source gives everything. They all look at their own universes, but it might be a step.
Okay. More learning. Yay. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me interject.
No, of course. Have a wonderful afternoon and hope to see you again in the future. Thanks for coming. Thank you.